Arne Slot has taken the Premier League by storm, but like many managers, he started out as an assistant for multiple youth and senior teams. His time in the Dutch league was phenomenal, eventually getting the job at AZ Alkmaar, taking over from the manager, going from assistant to the manager, where he would get them to second place until ultimately COVID-19 hit and they couldn't finish the season. He would then be sacked 7 months later, but not for a bad performance, because he had been in contact with his next club, Feyenoord, and AZ Alkmaar wanted a manager and coach who was solely in it for them. He would then go on to implement his style and tactics in Feyenoord and eventually win the Eredivisie. His tactics and style of play is unique, using the double pivot, and ultimately the Premier League managers so far have not been able to deal with it. After Feyenoord, he would then be linked to Liverpool. Klopp leaving opened the door for the next Liverpool manager, and they would look no further than Arne Slot.
You and me are everything, the greatest winger I have seen, Arne. Oh, Arne! His managerial career before Liverpool started out well. I don't know what Arne was doing in his player career. Was he on the wing? Was he a centre-back? Was he centre-mid? Who knows? But clearly it stressed him out because he lost all of his hair. Throughout the Dutch league, though, like many do nowadays, learning under not necessarily the best world-class players or managers Arne Slot learned, but you look at Arteta and Maresca, and there's plenty of examples where you spend time and time again going to different teams as an assistant manager, learning from different coaches. Arne Slot did that throughout his early managerial career before finally stepping into AZ Alkmaar. This is where he was allowed to have a little bit more freedom after their manager got sacked. And I think it's quite funny, actually. Obviously, what he did there is almost the catalyst to boost him up into the open scenery of the world of football and think, well, hang on here. He's gone and got AZ Alkmaar to second, impressive, but most people don't pay attention too much to the Dutch league. Let's be real. So he had to do a little bit more than that, but the fact that they sacked him because he was talking to Feyenoord, very interesting there. And ultimately, after culminating all that experience, he did go to Feyenoord, and he was ready to cook. He had his tactical plan laid out, and Feyenoord would go on to win the Eredivisie. Now, I don't know how many years it was since they last won it, but I know Arne Slot was the man to basically bin off everyone else. Ajax sit down, AZ Alkmaar sit down, Feyenoord are going to be on top, and he won them that trophy. Obviously, I think the season after that, they was in the Champions League, weren't they? They weren't necessarily on top of the league, but I'm pretty sure they was in and around the top. Anyway, I think it's pretty impressive, his record. It always seems like, you learn. Obviously, make your mistakes early in your career, and then boom, there'll be them 1 or 2 jobs where you really make your mark if you're a really good manager and you know tactically what to do. And he's had his way of playing and his tactics springboarded onto a much bigger platform when going to Liverpool. But it's really fascinating to see how Liverpool picked the right man. They would have looked at him carefully and closely and acknowledged that his tactics were very similar to the way Klopp played, and he fit the glove perfectly. And he's a man who is definitely ambitious, because he's gone from AZ to Feyenoord, and then once Liverpool came calling, he's accepted that. So he wants more and more. And at Liverpool now, we know how he's done this season. Arne, people doubted him. Let's have a look at what he really did.
We're here because you have an important message to deliver to our supporters. Would you like to tell them what that is?
Yeah, I have to. I will leave the club at the end of the season.
Big breaking news from Liverpool. Arne Slot has been confirmed as their new manager.
Now, at the start of the season, Slot was questioned. Everybody wondered, would he be able to live up to Klopp's legacy? His style of play is slightly similar, but The Premier League is a big step up from the Eredivisie, and yes, he'd won that one trophy, but compared to the stature of Liverpool and their expectations, it was a big jump. But so far, he has matched it. Some may say done one better. Comparing Klopp and Slot to Bob Paisley and Bill Shankly, how Klopp has set the foundations and then Slot potentially going to win trophies more consistently and regularly. The players have been able to fit his style of play and work towards his goals. It's been pretty much a seamless transition, constantly working on small tweaks that Klopp may not have implemented, and at the moment they find themselves in a Carabao Cup semi-final, top of the league and top of the Champions League table. It is an absolutely fairy tale start for Arne Slot, but with some of his players running out of contract next season, promises to be a turbulent time for Liverpool if they cannot sort out a couple of deals. Will Arne manage to weather the storm, or will next season be the fall of Arne Slot?
Arne Slot has done incredible things at Liverpool since he has been there, taking the reins from Klopp, guiding the sleigh into Christmas, top of the Premier League table. And even though they've had a few draws where they have scored late equalisers and recently had late last-minute winners, they still sit top of the Premier League with a game in hand, 6 points ahead, could be 9 points ahead if they beat Everton and Bournemouth in a couple of weeks. He really has just carried on that power train, and although he does give it all to Klopp mainly, the system and style is similar, just with tiny tweaks, that double pivot, protecting the back two when the wingers go ahead, and trying to overload that ball side as high up as the pitch as possible is very, very similar to Klopp in the pressing manner. They've just had slight tweaks, which means that the recruitment from Liverpool of getting a manager like Slot in has been very, very good to understand that his style is not completely different from Klopp. But you have to give credit for Arne Slot. Even Klopp had times at Liverpool, especially in his last season, where the quadruple was on, or they was in the 3-horse title race and they dropped off and they had that blip. That blip could be coming, but at the moment, Slot has stood strong even when they've been 0-0 for 90 minutes. Darwin Núñez comes on and scores, and that's the thing. He's got so many different attackers at his disposal now. The classic Salah, Gakpo, Diaz, whoever plays in that number 9 role is where he really has to find that true striker. But he's got Núñez who can come off the bench, Chiesa. There's so many different styles of play that for a team playing against Liverpool is so hard to defend. And obviously he's came through the Dutch ranks, learned the Dutch style of play and put his little spin on it. Could be to the Premier League, and people were saying, oh, why didn't we go for Xabi Alonso? Obviously he wanted to stay at Leverkusen. There was bigger managers who could have been brought in, but Slot has been the perfect fit. He has slotted in and ultimately really provided Liverpool with a safety net at the moment of looking like they can win the league, because every other team is so inconsistent. Arsenal have dropped too many points already. Yes, I guess if they beat Liverpool and then Liverpool lose to City, it's doable, but there's been rarely a time in this season where Liverpool have looked weak. I mean, the hardest opponent I would say they've faced in the Premier League has probably been Forest, where they've gave them a fucking hard game and they've had to work for it. But all in all, they've just slipped up a few draws here, a few draws there. And unfortunately, because of the rest of the league, they can afford to do that. And it's all from Arne Slot. I think his game management is one of the best in the league. The way he takes Trent off at 70th minute, brings on Bradley. He knows what to do the games ahead to make sure the team are going to be consistent, but also bleed in those players that he wants to see a little bit more about. And he's done incredible for Liverpool. I think they will definitely get a trophy this season. Will it be the Champions League? Will it be the Champions League and the Premier League and the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup? Who knows, because they're in all competitions. That's one thing that might hinder them, but I think Liverpool players are so used to playing so many games that it won't really bother them. But Slot has done perfectly. As we said, though, if those 3 players don't sign the contracts, he will be in a bit of a trickier situation next season. What lies ahead for Arne Slot? It could be a bit of a tornado. Will he be able to deal with it?
Every manager has their ups and downs. Liverpool, most seasons, do have a dip, but so far they look unstoppable, churning out result after result. Even when they're drawing 0-0, maybe they're losing, they'll come back, they score a late winner. Kloppage time is now Slottage time. He will face more challenges, especially if some of his key players leave. but what he has done so far. If he can bring back a trophy this season, Liverpool fans will laud him and love him. And if he can stay for many, many years and keep building, he could be an absolute great manager for them. He hasn't faced many troubles so far. His double pivot works well, and ultimately he has found multiple ways to win games, multiple players to implement, to create different situations and win the game in multiple ways, score different types of goals. Arne Slot seems to have all the answers at the moment, but next season will definitely be harder for him. He has had the perfect team, had the perfect system, had the perfect players for it, but if some of them players leave, he might have to adjust and change. Will Arne Slot be able to weather the storm? Will he be able to reinvent himself to go again if Liverpool win any trophies this season? We'll have to wait and find out. But so far, Arne Slot's the man, and he is, at the moment, the kingpin of all the managers in the Premier League.
And now what is next for Arne Slot? He's obviously had a really good season, as I've said. I think he will win silverware this season, but how will he deal with these contract situations? Let's say he gets the worst situation possible. He loses Van Dijk, he loses Trent, and he loses Salah. How is he going to replace Salah? Because I don't think you can play Diaz and Gakpo on opposite wings. Can Chiesa step up? Is Chiesa the man there who's going to take over 20 goals and assists Salah? He pretty much gets 30 goal contributions a season. I don't think so. So you're then going to have to go out in the market and look for someone who could potentially fill that. I think if Liverpool wanted anyone to change their season around, you would trust in Arne Slot. But it's going to be very difficult. You'd then have to bring in a centre-back. Konate and Kwanzaa, you're telling me you can play them two? I'm not too sure. I think you play one or the other. Then Trent, I think that side is almost covered. You would pretty much give the reins to Conor Bradley and see how he goes. But it's going to be very interesting for Liverpool next season, especially with the surrounding media circling, waiting for something on the contract situation. But Salah's been the main vocal one saying that it could be his last season. And I think Liverpool are really, really stupid if they don't give him a contract. Obviously, it's not under his control in terms of the managerial side, but he'll really have to tinker and work hard, potentially get Liverpool to even win a trophy next season. I'm not saying they're going to drop off dramatically, but I do think they will not be where they are this season. You look at Man City, they're able to just pump in money constantly. They've done it this January. They will be back. Arsenal will be gunning for the title if they ever get there, but they always lose points, and I would expect Liverpool to be in the mix again. I wouldn't really think that they go and eclipse everyone, because you look at Salah, he's got the most goals and assists in the Premier League so far this season. You lose a man like that, and where else do you get it from? You lose the creativity of Trent. You're going to have to try and figure out a way to bring those goals and assists back into the team. I'm not sure whether it's a clever move if they do let them three go, to be honest, but Slot would have to tinker. He would have to work his way. I do think he would be able to keep Liverpool afloat. They're not going to go and finish seventh, but it would definitely be more of a struggle when competing for the title. I think Arne Slot will be at Liverpool for the next 2 or 3 seasons minimum. It'll be interesting to see how he works the team. He's got to create his almost own reincarnation or next generation of his Liverpool squad, almost like Klopp did, because this squad has very much been started by Klopp, and they've got another 2 or 3 years, let's say, especially if those players stay, to keep going. So Slot hasn't really had to almost reinvent the team yet, but when it does come to that point is when he'll truly be tested as a potential great manager. So we'll have to see. But at the moment, Arne Slot is killing it, and he is Mr. Unstoppable.